Hello and welcome to the Unlock Your Hidden Confidence podcast. I'm Lara Lauder, and each week I'm going to bring you inspiring, uplifting, motivating stories and conversations from people who've dug deep, who've unlocked their hidden confidence and overcome fear, pushed through barriers and developed resilience and experienced the transformation that will positively impact their life forever. And I am delighted that this is my very, very first podcast episode. And I thought to myself, why? Why am I doing this? And I wanted to explain that to you and share that with you. And I could ramble on and on and on, but there's one lady that springs to mind who I just know would be perfect to ask me this question, why? And that is Amy Rowlinson, because Amy has her own podcast, Focus on Why, where she has inspiring conversations with people, asking them about their why. So, Amy, I've invited you today to come and interview me on my very first podcast, so that you can get deep and dig right down as to why it's important for me to get this podcast out there. So, welcome, Amy, and thank you so much for doing this for me.
Well, thank you, Lara. It's an absolute privilege. And I'm so excited for your podcast to come out because I love hearing your stories. You have a fabulous way of crafting and telling stories. And I feel like I'm in a classroom with you, captivated, sitting on the carpet as I used to be as a child, knowing how exciting this story was at story time. So I'm really, really excited to help you with this.
Oh, that's lovely. And of course, for those of you that don't know me, which of course there will be many of you out there, I was a teacher. I was a primary school teacher, and story time was the best time of the day. And anybody who was in my care will have enjoyed many a story time where we just fed their imaginations, and the words and the pictures just unlocked and became real life for them for that moment in time. So yes, I thought I ought to just share that with everybody, Amy, so that they knew. But of course, I don't just do that now. I work with ladies and gentlemen now to unlock their hidden confidence. And I do that through helping them find their voice, find their clarity, understand their message. And of course, I help them present with passion and purpose and poise. So you can obviously find out more about me at my website, which I'm sure I'll put the link out in the show notes at the end. But we don't want to hear all about that now, Amy. We want to get into some conversation and some stories. So over to you, Amy.
Well, I'm going to start with a question, Lara. What is it that is important for you around finding your voice and finding that clarity that you spoke about?
Finding my voice and finding my clarity. Really good question, Amy. And I also should just point out to everybody, we haven't planned this. I am very much a raw and real kind of girl, and so I didn't actually know what questions Amy was going to throw at me. So just, in fact, what was that question again, Amy?
It's all about, you said you wanted to help people to find their voice and their clarity, and I asked why do you want to help people? What does it mean to people once they found their voice and they found that clarity? What do they then go on to do?
Oh, Amy, this is at the crux of life, isn't it? And I think we should almost flip it. If people don't have clarity, if people don't know why they are doing something or where they are going, what does that lead to? So if I flip that back about my why and why is it so important, I think that if I didn't have somebody who had believed in me and had helped me unlock my hidden confidence and help me find my clarity about what was important to me, and also about who Lara was, who Lara is, what her skills and strengths and passions are, I wouldn't be sat here today recording my first podcast with you. So it's exactly that. It's about, if we don't know that why, if we don't have that clarity, what are we going to be missing out on? And also, what is everybody else going to be missing out on who's perhaps not had the benefit of what you have to say and what you have to offer?
So knowing how important that role of the person who helped you was, is that what you're wanting to replicate?
Yes. Yes, I think it is. I think, not think, it is. I definitely know it is. It is because I have a chapter in a book that came out last year, The Law of Brand Attraction. And in that book, I talk about a person. I talk about Mr. Waddington from Ryde School on the Isle of Wight. And in fact, this always sort of gets to choke me, really. So this is obviously why it is so important to me, because I can feel that emotion welling. Because if he hadn't given me the opportunity to really think and question what I was doing, my life would be very, very different. I certainly wouldn't have gone on to teach, and I wouldn't have gone on to have the positive impact that I've had on so many children. And I'm also going to say the positive impact that they have had on me. That's another whole conversation, Amy. But, I am rich in experience and knowledge and love and clarity from the people that I've worked with. And yes, they are 5, 6, 7-year-old, 8-year-old children. They have enhanced me just as much as the adults that I've met. So yes, I must just give a big shout out to Mr. Waddington, because he was the headmaster at Ryde Junior School on the Isle of Wight. And that was the school that I went to, but when I left there at 18, I was only one of 3 that didn't go on to university from this school. And I think that my perception of myself and the perception of others around me was, oh, well, Lara's really good on the sports field. She's really good in drama and public speaking. She's not academic. And, I left with 4 O levels and 2 A levels and an AS level. And I will always remember thinking I wasn't good enough to go to university. And I got a job in the Midland Bank, and the interview came a day after the interview I had for an estate agent's that was in Totland on the Isle of Wight, and their main office was in Lymington. And of course, I really wanted the estate agent job because, as you probably realize, I have the gift of the gab. I loved speaking. I love being around people. I love talking. I love that connection. And I got the job. I got offered the job in the estate agents. And my parents said, Lara, you really should go and have this interview at the Midland Bank, job in the bank, job for life. Because obviously back then in the 80s, that's how things were perceived, weren't they? Job for life. And I went for the interview in the bank. And I can remember afterwards, I failed the maths test. Yet they still offered me a job. And they offered me a job because I could talk. And at that time, banking was going over to having people in the banking hall and talking to customers, and obviously a lot of sort of selling, I guess, selling their products. And so I embarked upon a career in banking. And I'm sure you'll appreciate, Amy, because obviously, you've got to know me over the last few months. I was at my happiest when I was on the counter, and let me tell you, everybody, counting the money in sort of wedges of notes was a lot easier than doing the maths tests. And actually, I used to love being on the counter and talking to the clients. And actually, even the back office stuff, doing the REM. So for those of you who've worked in the back office of a bank, you'll know what I mean by the REM, and finding differences at the end of the day. I acquired knowledge and skills, but always knew that wasn't right for me. But it was during that time that I started to teach speech and drama back at Ryde School on a Saturday morning. And that's because I had done all my LAMDA speech and acting exams to a gold medal. And at that point, I was the youngest teacher on the LAMDA approved teachers list. And Mr. Waddington was instrumental in getting that off the ground for me. And then when they opened up a pre-prep department, I obviously applied for a job, the teaching assistant job. And I can remember being at the interview and thinking it's going really well. And at the end, Mr. Waddington said, Lara, I'm not going to give you the job. And I can remember thinking, oh, please don't cry, and trying really hard to sort of, that's okay, and saying, that's okay. And he said, I'm not going to give you the job because I believe you could be the teacher in the room. Oh, no, not me. Oh, no, I couldn't possibly do that. I've only got 4 O levels. Oh, I'm not clever enough to be with that. All the, I can't. But he saw something in me that said, I can. And it was him and that belief in me that led on to me to go to the Isle of Wight College and do a City and Guilds working with children 0 to 7 years in the evening while I was still working in the bank during the day. And then he wrote my reference and off I went to the West Sussex Institute of Higher Education, and 4 years later came out with a 2-1 B.Ed honours degree. So yes, that little girl from the Isle of Wight with only 4 O levels, where people thought she wasn't academic and couldn't do it, there I was. And actually I have to say that the work around being in the classroom, well, I excelled at that. And I think that there's a lot of primary school teachers out there who might not be highly academic, but they're the ones at that primary level that can really get down and understand where those children are at and how to help them and move them forward. And that definitely is my story. So that clarity that I was given by that knockback, it wasn't a knockback, it was a knock forward. It was the best possible thing that could have happened to me, because if I hadn't have had that, I might very well still be on the Isle of Wight. I'm not sure I would still be in the bank, because I did find that really quite boring, but but I undoubtedly would be doing, and then there's nothing wrong with being on the Isle of Wight, all my family are there, but what I'm trying to get across to you is I was limiting myself, and it almost had a cap on my capabilities. I didn't know I had that potential. I didn't know that I could get off the Isle of Wight and go to the mainland. I didn't know that I would be able to do the course, to be able to manage the work, to be independent, to be myself. And it's those things. It's those things that, yes, I've overcome. So he unlocked my hidden confidence. I only realized that now, 30 odd years afterwards, but he did me the biggest favor ever. And if I know I've helped people do that along the way, and I think that's a privilege.
And you said it was him who made you stop and think and question what you were doing. And when you're working with people now, is it the same process essentially that you are now putting into play with your clients?
I think it is. It's seeing that within them. And it's interesting, because I hadn't realized what a skill that was until recently, in recent years. I realized that with children, I did it, sort of like, you're tapping into them and you're nurturing their potential. And yeah, I just love it. I can remember little Adam, my first year of teaching. He didn't want to engage with learning. He did not want to be at school. He just wanted to be on his dad's farm and me on a tractor all the time. So I knew that I had a big barrier about getting Adam to learn. So I thought to myself, right, okay, well, what are we going to do? Well, we'll just have a tractor in everything. So tractors were in our maths, tractors were in our literacy, tractors were in our science, and boom, that boy excelled, because I just tapped into him, his passions, who he was as a human being and what was important to him. And I think that when I work with people now, I've learned, because obviously I've been working with adults now for the last few years, and that's exactly what happens, especially on the Aspire program. I'm taking away like the layers, like on an onion. I'm peeling it back, and I'm unearthing someone. I'm sort of reconnecting them with self, because I think quite often what happens, especially with adults, children, they're raw and real, but with adults we have so much sort of programming and conditioning. You think about the story I've just told you about me going to the Midland Bank and thinking I couldn't possibly do da-da-da-da-da-da. But of course, there was more to me than that. I just needed to be shown it. So I think that it's that knack of seeing that something, that special something in someone, and peeling it back to unearth that beauty, whatever that beauty may be. Passion, there's another word, beauty, passion, purpose, whatever it is you want to call it. It's about helping people identify that, because it's been glossed over, it's been lost, it's been suppressed, it's been knocked down. For some, they're stuck. They're so stuck. It's like that game of stuck in the mud at school. They're just so rigidly stuck. They don't know how. They don't know how to get out. And that's what I love helping people do.
You've just taken me back to playing Stuck in the Mud in the playground, and what is an adult version of Stuck in the Mud? That's what you're essentially saying. It's a great metaphor to use there. And it's really interesting hearing you talk about how you're working with adults now. You used to work with children, but it's the same nurturing, tapping into their passion, skill that you are. And you talk about unearthing and reconnecting them. You're essentially reconnecting them to as you said, the raw and real version, which is the child version within us. Because as a child, we have this knowledge, this belief in ourselves. But as you said, lots of things happen where it ebbs, or it doesn't get nurtured, it doesn't get fed, it doesn't have that fantastic, watering to the seed that is there. So take me back to the moment where you realized that you had this potential that somebody else had seen in you.
Oh gosh. Well, I guess if we take it right back, my memory is that one of being sat there, being told that I wasn't going to have the job that I so desperately wanted because I saw it as my way out of the bank. But the realization that there was a reason why. It wasn't just, oh, you're not good enough. It wasn't a message of you're not good enough. It was actually a message of you could do more. And actually, I want to see that. I want to help you. I want to encourage you. And I don't just say I think, I know that it was that was like, wow, somebody has believed in me. And it's not that my parents didn't believe in me. I don't think they understood me and my capabilities. If we go back to that point in time, age 19, 20, their perception of how my life was going to pan out actually is probably quite limited because of the life that they had led and the opportunities that they had around them. And perhaps I was going to sort of, their vision of what they wanted for me. They perhaps didn't want me to put myself out there and get knocked back. I don't know. I've never actually talked to them about that. But I think certainly for me, it was the first time at that point in an adult of thinking, yeah, I can. And actually, if we look back at that, and you touched upon this about, how people reinvent themselves and how people, it's ebbs and flow. And actually, something quite significant had happened when I was 18. I'd lost my best friend. She died in a car accident. And actually, you talk about those ebbs and flows. So actually that big ebb and flow happened then. So whilst we go through our teenage years, yes, we can do anything we want to. We can be anywhere when we want to. I know that a part of me went then as well with Karen, that is undoubtedly going to have that effect. And how do you recover from that? So perhaps when I went for that job, my self-belief in myself was actually low. So it got me back on track. And I think the lesson that I've learned from that over time is we can do that. We can take that old plug, that old program out, and we can plug a new one in. It does take guts. It does take determination, and it does take strength to do that. But I'm sure that people listening will be able to identify things in their lives, whether it will be illness, bereavement, divorce, that type of thing, where your life has changed significantly, and for some, they've been able to overcome it, and for others, they are stuck. And it is a perpetual thing that's going on and on and on. So actually, I'm grateful to have the opportunity to have been able to restart again, reboot, and get on and move on. And I hope that the podcast and these inspirational stories that I bring to people will help people do that. It will not only inspire them when they hear these stories, but it will give them faith. It will give them hope. It will give them a change of mindset. It will give them knowledge. It will give them connection, because they're going to be able to connect with these people. It will give them community, because we're going to have a community group. It will be a support so that they too can have that clarity. So if anybody is feeling rigid and stuck in that mud, keep listening. I want to help you.
And you talked about your parents not really understanding you and having that limited perception because of their own upbringing, their own way of life. Taking that on board, you probably, I can sense that that's where having that sort of restriction enabled you to open up the lives for the children that you worked with.
Most definitely. And I think also part of living on an island and feeling limited by that. And, for example, when I went off to West Sussex Institute and was doing my degree, and I made friends, lovely Mary Claire, and she lived in Crawley. And I can remember Mary Claire saying, well, just come up on the train in Portsmouth, come up and see me. And I said, I can't do that. And she said, well, why ever not? And I said, because I wouldn't know what train to get on. I said, I've never got off the fast Catherine ride to Portsmouth, and you walk up and the train station is there. I've never done that by myself. I wouldn't know which train to get on. I wouldn't know what to do, how to do it. I've only ever been escorted on a school trip. And there I was, age 20, opening up that, how was I going to get on a train and come to Crawley, So it sounds so limiting, but that actually was the reality. And yes, I've obviously made sure that my children know how to get on a train.
But it's opening their minds, and this is what you're doing with your adult clients as well, and everybody you work with. You have this such rich knowledge now of the way that things work and of the opportunities that are out there, and it's just this case of opening people's minds to it. And you can see that in your sort of effervescence that you bring to the space. There really is a lot of energy that you bring. What do you want to achieve for people, Lara? What is it you want to do?
Oh, energy. That's so lovely to hear you say that, Amy. For me, age nearly 50, I've still got that energy. But yes, you see me when I get going, my energy is just there. I'm just in the moment. I'm so excited. But that's because I'm doing what I love, isn't it? I'm doing what I love. So if I can help people transform in the ways that I know how, the Lara ways, my skill set, we've all got our own skill set. So, I have to thank my parents profusely for age 4. They bought into the fantastic, wonderful Mrs. Whale, who many children on the Isle of Wight have benefited from her wonderful knowledge and tuition. But I embarked upon her speech lessons, good old fashioned elocution. And, my parents paid for those lessons all the way through till I was, I think, actually 19, because I remember my dad coming up to the actual Lauder studios where I did one of the bigger exams there with me in London. But, that richness of experience there, the richness of the experience in the Midland Bank and all of that story that it encompasses, the richness of, earning my money to go through university by selling Tupperware. Oh, my goodness. I love that plastic, by the way, Amy. I absolutely love Tupperware. For anybody that remembers Tupperware, my Tupperware parties, I used to love that. But that richness that I bring to that go-getter attitude, that nothing's going to get me down, and I think that is what's key. It's that overcoming, and if I can bring that to people to help them shift, move so that they're unstuck, move them, transform them. So there's the speech bit going on there. There's the richness, obviously, of teaching children, which is a huge privilege. And of course, now teaching adults and being an accredited trainer from the Institute of Leadership and Management, a level 5, teaching the Aspire for Greatness course, doing that for adults is just wonderful. And of course, as you know, I do the lovely, wonderful colour and style, which, some people think, that's just a lipstick lady type thing. Oh no, it's more than that, let me tell you, because obviously that's again another place where my hidden confidence was unlocked through color. I mean, who would have thought just by wearing the right shade of color, underneath your skin can have such a profound effect. And that was me after I had been very, very unwell in 2000 and, oh gosh, what was it? I've been unwell from 2012 to sort of 2015, 16. Yes, that's right. I had it for Christmas present, 2015. And I went to have my colours done, and look at where that has led. That has just unleashed a whole new level of hidden confidence, skill and expertise, which I can now share with people and they can benefit from. And yeah, I just think it's wonderful.
Well, from someone else who's had their colours done, I am a massive advocate, and I highly recommend anyone to reach out to Lara to talk about colour and what that means to you in your life, because it is a huge unlocking of confidence. I absolutely guarantee it. It was something I gave my daughter as a gift when she was 16, and she has never looked back either. It's been fabulous. Lara, I want to ask you about the podcast, more specifically, behind the why, the purpose of, we've talked about what you want to do to help people find their voice and their clarity. What does it mean to you to use a podcast as a medium to deliver this message?
It seems the most obvious medium for me. Lara's a talker. Lara is a talker. My mum used to say when I was in those Tupperware days, Lara could sell ice to Eskimos. It is my preferred method of transport, as you would call it. People have their skill set, and that's not to say I can't write. I have an English degree. Of course I can write, but it's hard work. Reading is hard work. You can see from my academic background, I had to work very, 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 very hard. I'm not saying other people didn't have to. Of course they did. We all have to. But for me, speaking and standing up and speaking, and it goes back to Mrs. Well, age 4, it was something that I grew up with, and it became part of my armor. And for those of you although those that have heard me speak at the PSA, the Professional Speakers Association, I talk about this cloak of confidence, and actually the color obviously comes into that. But for me, part of my cloak of confidence is the skill set. It's the knowledge and the confidence of something that I do well. And obviously having gone through all those exams, and they were the exams that I passed with absolute flying colours, and, having gone through Rotary Youth Speaks and the wonderful Mr. Cantwell, I may not have enjoyed, Mr. Cantwell, if you're listening, I may not have enjoyed your history lessons or your politics lessons, but I loved doing public speaking and debating with you. And, it's that background, that is something I am good at. And I think this is the thing about the podcast. It's about helping people recognize what they're really, really good at. And it may be something that they've not even tried yet, but it's about that having a go and utilizing it and bringing it to their life and their space and doing that. So for me, having a podcast, it's a bit like, why not? Why ever not? Why would I not have a podcast? Because obviously holding space, I love facilitating. I ran Marlborough Ladies at Latte for 3 very successful years. I love facilitating. I love training. I loved teaching. I loved holding that space. It's something that I feel very comfortable with and comes naturally. And I appreciate for some people that is a huge fear, speaking in public. But this is a bit like we go to experts for what they can do for us. You go to someone who's confident in speaking if you're not, because they're going to be able to help you. We go to a trained solicitor if we want advice upon the law, because that's their area of speciality. Accountants love numbers. My husband, who does software, he loves solving puzzles and problems and the maths that all goes into that. That just fills me with horror, but of course it's his strength. It's what he's very, very good at. And this is about us recognizing our wonderful skill set and utilizing it. So that is why it's a podcast, Amy, because for Lara, it's what's right.
And you mentioned right at the beginning that you are going to create a positive impact, and you're going to use this medium to do that. And that's what you've spent all of your time teaching both children and adults doing, and creating those ripple effects and those positive impacts. Share with us something or maybe a story that has been a particular impact on you of what's happened as a result of your work.
Oh, Amy, there's so many. Oh gosh, there's so many. I've had so many truly wonderful cards and letters and messages from parents over the years. There's two that are in my head right now, and one of them is at St John's in Carterton, and it's with a year one class, and we did a pirate assembly. And I shall never. You can imagine. I was there. We were all dressed up. I was Captain Hook. I had the wig on with the long hair down here. You know, I was there, and they were behind me, ready to go. And all the parents were in the hall, all waiting. And I had the children all lined up. And the wonderful thing about teaching is, you know, it's like they're putty in your hands. You know, year one, and they're all there, and I'm sort of going shh. Like this as they're in the line. And I know from my sort of acting, let's make them wait, you know, let's make that dramatic entrance. So I literally let it all go very quiet. I knew that everyone was waiting, and the head teacher was kind of, well, where are they? Why aren't they coming in? And then, of course, I bound into the hall, and I'm there going, ha ha! Me hearties, like this. And of course, they're all kind of jumping out their skin, these parents. And of course, in come the children. And of course, it wasn't right. It, you know, some may think, oh gosh, that's going to be a riot. Far from it, because obviously we all had a place, we all knew what we were doing. And that was one of the best assemblies I have ever done. I loved it. The children loved it. The parents loved it. And I remember having cards afterwards. And I remember one parent even writing a proper letter into the head teacher to say what a fantastic moment that was, and how the children will cherish that forever. So I've got that, and then I must just share with you. I must just share with you about Tom. So this is a school in Swindon where this is quite a recent story. So this is from about it was about 4 years ago. This is when Tim Peake went up into space. And I was helping 2 days a week in a school in Swindon, help turn it around. The year 1 and 2 children, get the year 2 children ready for SATs. The main teacher was off on long-term sickness. And I was really surprised that none of the other teachers had sort of signed up to sort of doing a topic about the space and Tim Peake. And I kind of went in and I thought, really? We're not doing anything about a British astronaut going up in space? And I thought, right, can't have this. So of course, for me, I had to slot that in. It was a wonderful learning opportunity. And I signed up. We had the class signed up for Cosmic Classroom. We were there watching the launch. We even tuned in. We had Tim, we were part of the Times Educational Supplement Cosmic Classroom with the Tim Peake beaming in live into the classroom. It was amazing. The children were sort of, you know, so fired up with this. And of course, you know, an astronaut is a job that, and I think for those children, until that time, it was something they didn't know anything about. They certainly didn't think that there was a possibility of maybe being an astronaut one day. And of course, I have a policy. I have a non-negotiable to any child that I teach, and that is we have an I can attitude in our classroom. I've always had that. It's I can. It's never I can't. It's I can. And I remember this one little boy, Tom, just being so passionate about wanting to become an astronaut. And of course, I'm there saying, well, you can. Why? Of course you can. If you want to be an astronaut, of course you can. So we did all of that. It was wonderful. That contract finished. I left. And then I guess it must have been a year or so after, Tim Peake had obviously come back. He had written his book and he was doing his book tour. And one of the mother of this young boy sort of sought me out on Facebook and sort of put, you know, I hope you don't mind me getting in touch, she said, but I've got something that we'd like to send to you, actually. And obviously she knew one of the other teachers that I knew. Anyway, this parcel arrived. She said, would you let us send you this parcel? And she said, when the parcel arrives, could you please get in touch with me, because I want to send you something over the messenger as well. So this parcel arrived and I dutifully got in touch with her. And I opened up and it was this book here, this Tim Peake, Ask an Astronaut. And then I opened up, gosh, I'm going to get emotional because it's just so wonderful. I opened up this Messenger, and there was a little video recording of Tom dressed up in his astronaut outfit, waiting in line to see Tim Peake. And he goes up to Tim Peake, hands the book over, and they obviously have a little conversation. And then he asks who this is for. And he says, this is for my teacher, Mrs. Lauder, because she says I could be like you one day. And that's just golden. That is why. That is the result. Yes, that is the why. That is the why. That is why I do what I do. That is why teaching will always be in me. That is why I want people to believe in themselves. That is why. And in fact, when I was getting ready, I wondered if you'd ask me about a school story. And in fact, that is why I got the book out ready. Apologies for the rustle of the paper, but actually inside the book is a little note from Tom. And it says, "Dear Mrs. Lauder, I met Tim Peake on Saturday, the 9th of December, and decided to give you this because of all the determination you've put in me to be an astronaut like him." Wow, did I really do that? Well, I'm going to say Tom did it. And I'm going to say Tim Peake did it. I'm going to say I facilitated that. And that is what is behind this podcast. It's about the facilitation. It's about me having, if I can be privileged enough to have a part in connecting people, have a part in inspiring people, have a part in motivating people, and helping them unlock whatever it is that's within them, to have the confidence to be who they want to be, to do whatever it is they want to do, then that is my why, because I'm doing this for pleasure. There is no ulterior motive. I'm doing it from the heart.
And if you had to sort of capture that, what is your strap line for the show? What is the key element there?
Oh, Amy, it's believe to achieve. Believe. It's about having belief. And it's not just any type of belief. It's unwavering self-belief. It's that belief. Who would have thought that, 5 years ago I was going to start a podcast, but why ever not? It's having that unwavering belief that actually the stories that I have and the stories of the people that I'm going to connect with and bring to this audience are going to be of value. And if they just help one person, then that is worth it.
Yeah, it sounds incredible. Why don't you share with us the type of people that you're going to be approaching and who are going to be coming on the show, so that we know a bit more about what's to come?
Okay. Well, anybody that has a story, anybody who's had their hidden confidence unlocked. I want to know who, I want to know how, and I want to know what has been the result of that since. So anybody who has a story. I'm obviously got a sort of little bank of people who I've met along the way, and I can't wait to bring them to you. Do you want to give a little sample there of someone that's going to come on?
Only if you're ready to, otherwise people will have to wait.
Oh, okay. Let's keep them waiting. Let's keep you waiting, everybody. But let me say that I've already got some already lined up. But of course, it could be this person that's listening to this podcast today. If this is you, maybe you've worked with me. Maybe you are one of the children that I've taught. I know my first year of teaching, they are all turning 30 this year. I do keep in touch with some of them. And one of them, the lovely Lucinda, she is head designer at Bamford's in London. And of course, I'm bound to say, Amy, it's because I gave her all those opportunities to express her creativity at the art table when she was 5. But, it could very well be. I have another young lady, Lucy, who was in my class, who, oh gosh, I think she's 28, 29 now. She's a teacher. And I remember when she was embarking upon her teaching career, she said that I was her inspiration and kept her going. And actually she was a child who found it very, very hard at school. And I think she took her maths GCSE 6 times. I'm pretty sure it was 6 or 7, but she kept going. She kept going because, she knew she was going to make a good teacher, and she is an excellent primary practitioner. I'm very proud.
So for all those people that are listening to your first episode today and they're thinking about who was that first person and they can't think of it, maybe it's because they haven't found it yet.
Could be. Could very, very well be. And, whatever age you are, it's not too late for you to unlock your hidden confidence and live your life your way. And that really is my message, Amy.
Well, I hear it, and I'm really excited for you, Lara. It's going to be a great show, and you're going to be definitely helping people to find their voice and their clarity through purpose, passion, and poise. And I'm really looking forward to hearing more episodes.
Oh, thank you, Amy. Goodness me, I kind of feel that, where did all that come from? But Amy, I think we ought to leave it there. I could share so many, many more stories with you, but I won't. But thank you so much for giving me the prompt, because actually, as I said at the beginning, we didn't sort of plan this, but your questioning has helped bring out my why of why I want to do this podcast and who it's going to help and what benefit will be to them. So thank you so much, Amy. And of course, for everybody listening, do please go and check Amy's podcast out, Focus on Why, because you've just heard my why. Goodness me, she has something like 162 episodes you've banked up now in a year, something like that?
Yeah, by the time this is out, it's probably over 200 to be.
Wow. And they are all stories about people's why. So do look out for that and plug Amy into your ears. Maybe you're walking the dog, you've got her on in the background, and let's have more and more of these inspirational stories. So thank you so much, Amy. And thank you to everybody who is listening. And I would encourage you to join me again every week and click the button so that you can have these podcasts coming directly to your iPhone or your iPad or whatever you're using to download your podcast. And of course, what I would really, really, really love you to do is, if you have enjoyed this today, I would love it, please, if you would leave a review and let everybody else know what this podcast is about, and they too might be interested. So thank you so much for listening, and you can find out more about me on my website, www.laralauder.com, and I look forward